Hello and welcome back to Pure Michigan Sports. Christian Peck-Dimit, Alex Deimel,
Do we have to
and
do this?
we may not have to actually do this. I mean, this is a brutal week for Lions fans, for Michigan sports fans, and that's what we're here
doing
for.
so well. Like as a whole, things were great.
They were.
Things couldn't. I could not have asked things to be better going into last week. Everyone
And
was
then.
rolling. And we
literally had an episode titled a few weeks ago, something like "Everyone's Rolling" or "Everybody's Hot right now," something like that, because it seemed like every Michigan and Detroit team in the sports world was absolutely cruising, and that's what we're here to bring you is all of the new news in the sports world in the state of Michigan. And if that's what you're looking for, drop a follow. If you're new, welcome. If you're old, welcome back. And everyone gather around for a little crash out episode, because this was one of the bigger fall-offs that we've seen sports-wise in a while. And on the one side, that's good because that means it's the best we've had it in a while to fall off of this height. But it was pretty tough. Let's start where the weekend started, which was, of course, on Saturday. And going into that day, we talked about we'll have the Lions, we'll have the Wings, we'll have the Pistons all playing on the same day. And then Michigan basketball as well. It should have been a great day until it wasn't. And nothing went well. In fact, the Wings started it with an L. The Pistons followed suit, which in the back of my mind, there's a very small number of times that the Pistons and the Lions have won on the same day in the last few years. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, hell yeah, all right, maybe that's a good omen. No. We cap it off with an absolutely brutal loss to, I almost said the Redskins, to the Commanders. And then, of course, the weekend went on to see a Michigan half-court buzzer-beating loss. Actually, that was a few days before. And then it just got worse as everything seemed to unfold. The Pistons lost another time. The Red Wings are now on a 3-game losing streak. And to cap it all off, in the last few days, the Lions have lost both coordinators. That's offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who is now a Chicago Bear. And as of when we're recording this, most of you know we record the night before. What about 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago from when we're recording this, Aaron Glenn is now a New York Jet of all teams. And also
that's just common.
Lost our D-line coach as well. He's the D coordinator in New England, and maybe we should start at the end here. That's not just bad in and of itself because you lose those guys, but it's also bad when you think about the inevitable fact that there will be more to come, because that's just the way the NFL and really all sports teams work, is when Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn go somewhere, more than likely they're going to be bringing other assistants with them, and the chances that those are also Lions coaches and they leave as well is pretty high, and that sucks because, Alex, we saw it with Michigan football this year. Resetting a coaching staff is not easy. The Lions may well have to do that.
I think the Michigan situation is obviously a little bit different. That wasn't even just a coaching reset. That was an entire team reset.
Of course.
You lost your entire starting lineup practically, and we entered a new era of college football where nothing was the same. The one big thing, I went after that loss, I'm like, okay, accept it, move on. You're going to lose your coordinators. That's fine. Not fine. You'd never hope to lose your guys like that.
Expected, though.
Of all fucking places to choose, he picks in the division. Are you kidding me? Flip the bird without flipping the bird. I genuinely don't understand. You are always... It's one of those things where when coordinators go off and get that job, there's something there that it's like, okay, I'm at least happy that they served their time here. They're going to do what their dream is. This, that, and the other thing. You do have to feel a little bit happy for them normally. Aaron Glenn, I think he's going to completely flopped with the New York Jets. Most of it's him, or I would say some of it's him. Most of it is the New York Jets just can't find any like good ground to start. It's
No trust in the
pathetic.
franchise.
Um, just an absolute joke. I don't think he's going to turn them around at all. Ben Johnson was like, like if he goes, I don't know, if he went to a New England or he went to a Tennessee, any of the other places that are looking for head coaches right now, I'd be like, okay, like, makes sense. What the hell? What? The rumor I thought was that Ryan Poles, the Bears GM, was trying to talk the Bears staff and front office out of this job, out of offering Ben Johnson this job. So what the hell happened in the interim?
I don't know, because all I saw reporting-wise outside of that, because that was a rumor going in, that obviously doesn't mean a whole lot now. But yeah, I saw a bunch of other reporting that said he's probably going to be a Chicago Bear, and then Caleb Williams answered that prank call from maybe Ben Johnson. I thought that was hilarious. Hopefully
That should have been the writing on the wall that your new starting quarterback is so dumb to get catfished by a fucking teenager.
Did you hear?
That should have been the writing on the wall.
He had to have the real Ben Johnson send him a picture, like a selfie, before he picked up the next FaceTime. I thought the real FaceTime. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, it not just sucks that they left, because I'm with Alex here. Yeah, it always sucks, but you almost expected it, right? That was the story all year long, was we're going to lose Ben, we're going to lose Aaron. I think to do it after a loss like that is particularly brutal, just because of the way the season shakes out. You would much rather have seen them ride off in the sunset post Super Bowl trip, or of course post Super Bowl win. But now you've got to play Ben Johnson twice a year. And you've got to play a Ben Johnson that, assuming they can shore up the offensive line, which is a big assumption because that organization isn't exactly standing on solid ground either.
It objectively sucks for that, because there is so much offensive talent on that team. So much. I still don't know how I feel about Caleb Williams, if I'm being honest, but Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, like, you've got some dogs on that offensive line, or outside of that offensive line, rather. And I don't think this is one of those things where, like, it's going to carry it. Yes, it's similar. It's similar type of talent, I think. That's where it kind of makes sense.
What do you mean?
Like, a young, semi-hot receiving core that he can mess around with. He's got he's got the weapons. He just doesn't have the O-line that he had in Detroit. So it could make sense. Where I don't know, and maybe it's because I'm not an NFL coach and there's no bias to a team, whatever. I don't think I could consciously go unless they made me some massive offer, which it doesn't sound like it was that big. I mean, yes, OC to a head coaching job is probably big. I don't know. I fucking hate this, man. Everything collapsed before it was supposed to. I'm not happy. I don't know whether to be happy that I'm not stressed out. There was a moment last week where I was like, honestly, if there's a loss like before the Super Bowl, the teeny part of me will be a bit relieved of the fact that my blood pressure won't be spiking for the next few weeks. I didn't want that to happen now. Nobody wanted that to happen now. That's where I don't. I will get into what went wrong, but it hasn't even been a week. The bodies aren't even cold, and people are leaving.
Yeah, and I think that we can get into what went wrong right now, because that is sort of part of it. This is Twitter sphere rumors now, because, take this with a grain of salt. The sports world on Twitter is an ugly place. But so many people seem to be thinking that Ben Johnson's head was not in it. Meaning he had already accepted this job, which seems to be, a fact, essentially. And he was already looking to try to poach Dennis Allen and do these other things to shore up, his future, that he forgot about where he is at right now. And that clearly seemed to be the case, because situationally, where you're at right now, situationally in a game, was really fucking dumb. I texted Alex this after the game, or probably after the play. Any trick play that puts Jamison Williams in a decision-making role is a bad trick play. It's really dumb because he's really dumb. And I love the kid. He is a stellar personality. Of course, he is a stellar talent. He's incredibly fast. His route running's improving. His hands are basically golden after the first few years where they were anything but. That being said, he doesn't have two brain cells to put together. And that's fine. Except when you put him in a passing role on a trick play, which is cool. Do it when you're up against Tennessee. Do it when you're beating the brakes off of the Cowboys. Don't do it in a must-score drive, in a must-win playoff game where you are in danger of being upset. Keep that one deeper in the trick bag. Do a fucking end around like you just did. I'm not going to tell him how to call plays because he's the mastermind. But I can tell him when to do those plays because that was a really stupid play call.
Now, here's my question. Is your issue more with the play call itself or the fact that it was designed around JMO being the decision maker? Because I honestly, that play call is that was on par for Ben Johnson's offense in any scenario. Was something when you weren't expecting it like that, pull the cat out of the bag. I agree with you though. I don't think I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen Amon-Ra St. Brown throw a football, at least from the quarterback position. But based on
Jared Goff this year against the Seahawks.
That was Amon-Ra. Why did I
Yes.
think that was Monty?
No, it was Amon-Ra.
Monty also threw one.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, sorry, I got them confused. But even still, put someone who's done that already, and maybe it could be the element of surprise, and that's what Ben Johnson's entire thing has been about. Like, all of a sudden we're here, it's misdirection, and it's the last thing you're going to expect. It did not make sense at that time, and it's also at the same time. We were, I think, both so confident going into this game. I mean, I think 98% of the money and the handle was on the Lions in this game. Vegas made a fortune.
Oh, I'm sure.
But the one thing we said, the one thing I at least remember that I said was the Lions have to be able to contain Jaden Daniels. They have struggled to contain a mobile quarterback all year. Whether it be from all of a sudden he's got open room up the middle because the linebackers are too spaced out, or, he just picks certain holes because the zone coverage in the secondary is all messed up. You need to be able to contain him. And that, it's like they took that and said, actually, no, we're going to do the complete opposite. That guy had all day to do whatever the hell he wanted. And he looked like what he is, which unfortunately is a superstar. It's not like we lost in the play. I do want to, the only saving grace is not that there should be any, but if this was a bad team, I would be a little bit more upset. But this is still, not saying this isn't a team we shouldn't have beat, but it did not seem like they took this team very seriously. And all of a sudden, we're down 31-21 at half, and people are like, holy shit. So, I don't know. I still don't know if I've accepted that we're not playing this weekend. I don't know if I've gotten there yet because I think everybody's minds were so wrapped around it. But the one thing I'm gonna say is there were so many. I don't ever want to hear Jared Goff chants again. Screw Dan Campbell. Screw this. Screw that. Screw this. Screw that. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Are you saying you don't like Jared Goff now? What?
No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, why are we chanting? Yes, he had an awful game. He had a terrible game. Dan Campbell did not coach well. It's jumping ship after one lost war.
Oh. I thought you were saying the opposite. Okay.
This is a franchise that is finally, and we talked about it last offseason, this is a franchise that is finally investing in long-term talent, something we have not seen in a very long time in Detroit. Beggars cannot turn into choosers overnight. And no, I don't think the 15-2 record matters anymore. I
of
don't give
course
a
it
rat's ass about it anymore. I think this was a bit of a losing season with the talent that you had, absolutely. But to ditch it after what's just starting is pathetic.
No, and I think this is just the Lions fans' first taste of something that sort of 24-hour news cycle in sports media has gotten us to a point here. It's not just the NFL. I actually think it's worse in the NBA, and that can hopefully be a conversation for a different time. But there is this thing in sports media where teams that make it to the playoffs and lose get more negative focus and negative press and criticism than teams that don't make it at all. And I understand that that's a different case with the Lions because you have much higher expectations than just making the playoffs. But like I said, this is the first time Detroit fans are getting that experience where we're used to being on the back burner right now. We're used to, at this point in the year and in the season, people forgetting that the Lions exist except for as the butt of a joke. Now we got to deal with this. We got to deal with sitting here and watching ESPN pundits shit on our team because we lost, because we deserve it. And I get it. I understand what you're saying. No one should jump ship after one bad Jared Goff game. But at the same time, he was terrible. He was terrible in a must-lose game, and he was terrible in a second half where you needed him. He deserves some criticism here. I think it's the same thing.
Absolutely. I think it's safe to say, though, there's a difference between criticism and completely jumping ship on a guy.
100%.
There's always the... I'm not saying that I'm not, like... There's always that instant reaction. It's that gut feeling that just comes out because you're so frustrated with a loss. I do think it's different when you have this... What the Lions franchise has been. When we had Stafford and everybody praised Stafford and loved him to death, did he ever get us anywhere close to this point?
No, of course not.
But even after he left, people are still singing his praises, even though he plays for another fucking team. Look what Jared Goff has been a part of. And yes, you can say Stafford didn't have the talent, Stafford didn't have all that. At the end of the day, a quarterback is a quarterback. You don't go anywhere without a quarterback. You don't do shit without a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty similar to a conversation that we had post, if you remember this, the Green Bay win, where we talked about people in sports media and fans being unable to ride a line or finding any middle ground or relativism. It's either Dan Campbell's the greatest coach ever, he puts his balls on the line, or he's an idiot and he's going to lose you a game eventually. For some reason, and so much of this is that recency bias, for some reason, everyone is either Jared Goff gets chance in Red Wings games, Jared Goff gets chance in Arizona at an unrelated Walmart, Jared Goff gets this, that, and the other thing, he's the MVP, or he's an idiot, he's a pedestrian at quarterback, get him off the field. And for some reason, no one can ride that line where they go, he had an MVP caliber season, he had a really shitty playoff game, we'll move on. Hopefully he'll be better next time around. Because honestly, that's what it's going to be. When all the hemming and hawing is done, no matter what happens in the Twitter sphere online, what's going to happen? Jared Goff's going to be our quarterback next year. That's a fact, right?
Yes.
We're probably going to make the playoffs again next year. Hopefully, that's a fact. And he is going to have another situation where it's going to be his play. Hopefully, we have, not a plague on the defensive end and end with no one playing like we did this year. Hopefully, it won't be as much pressure on him in the offense. But Jared Goff, 1 year from now, is going to have another situation where he needs to be not just good, but great. And that's the end-all, be-all for Lions fans. When it comes around again, are we going to have this again? Chances are probably not. But I think that's the period here. That's the end of the sentence is shit on him all you want. Call him a pedestrian. Say, this whole season's a waste because he threw it away, which in part he kind of did.
Literally.
literally. But at the end of the day, now, to be fair, one of those, one of them was garbage time picks-wise. One of them was end of the half, where they didn't get any points out of it. But, again, you're splitting hairs here. He had a really bad game, and he's going to have a chance to renew himself in Detroit's eyes. At this point, it's wait and see. And we're to a point now where we have the same conversations that Baltimore fans do, that Ravens fans do in Baltimore, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
That's awesome. He won another MVP. What a great year he's having. Let's see him do it in the playoffs. And again, we're comparing apples and oranges here to a certain extent because this one was a lot less on him and a lot more on Mark Andrews, but he turned the ball over in that game. He had a pedestrian-level game. I'm talking about Lamar. You, once again, and this is a blessing to be in a situation, this is a good problem to have, where you're a team whose regular season doesn't much matter anymore.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Now, I wouldn't go that far, though. I know I said absolutely, but looking at, and I know we're looking ahead right now, and it's probably something we should say, but I'm going to say it anyways. Our away non-divisional games, this is has to be the toughest away schedule outside of a team's division that I have ever seen. Baltimore, Cincy, Philly, Washington, Kansas City, and the Rams.
And you best believe that Washington game is going to be heated.
Washington game is going to be heated. Baltimore is going to be tough. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those teams. What do they all have in common?
Playoff teams.
Yes, but
what were you going to say?
quarterbacks.
Yeah, there you go.
Hurts, Lamar. I guess I'll count Mahomes as kind of mobile because he just seems to do everything and everybody loves him. And Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
4 guys that you are going to have to learn to stop without Aaron Glenn. Now,
we won't be able to blitz and leave everyone on islands without Aaron Glenn.
This is also a team that I'm looking at it now has 31 free agents. You got Derek Barnes, Teddy Bridgewater, John Kaminsky, who was out all year, Marcus Davenport, Carlton Davis, Cleo Dorsey. The list just keeps going, and unfortunately, it's just packed with defensive players, which is the one thing you kind of hope.
Not only that, but you guys heard the list there. Key defensive players, too.
Yes, absolutely. And, I mean, you've also got Skip. I don't think we can lose Dan Skipper. And I think true Lions fans will be genuinely disappointed and upset if Tim Patrick leaves.
Yeah, he was that Josh Reynolds role from last year.
He filled his role better than anyone I've ever seen fill that role.
Yeah, he was the Josh Reynolds. Like, he's only going to have 400 or 500 yards in the year. And I don't know. Tim was a midseason pickup, so I don't know what his actual final numbers were. But he's going to be there on third down. He's going to be there when you need big plays. And he ended up catching a couple tutties. Good for the guy.
Midseason pickup with 34 receptions, 416 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
There you go.
So I'll take it around.
As far as the schedule is concerned, this is another situation where it's like, this is a good problem to have. Lions fans aren't used to getting the cream of the crop. Because you know what this means? This doesn't just mean, I'm showing the schedule right now. Yeah. This doesn't just mean tough teams. It means high-value matchups in primetime television. We're not used to that. You'd hope. But the point being, we are used to being terrible and then getting an awful schedule and then still losing some of those games. When you are good in the NFL, and it's a lot less true in the other sports because there's set amounts that you play them. Really, it's just the NFL, where if you are good, you are rewarded with a difficult schedule. We have earned this schedule. I'm sure this is similar to what Dan Campbell is going to say. We have earned opponents like this. The record's probably not going to look as good as this season. We're probably not going to win 15 games. It might be 12. It might be 13. It might be less than that, depending on how the coordinators work out. But you've got a situation where you're going to be battle-tested going into what Lions fans now understand is what really matters, which is the playoffs.
Now, I do want to touch on one thing I just did read that I didn't know it was a 5-year deal for Aaron Glenn.
Oh, for Glenn? Yeah, yeah.
It's a guy that gave up 34 points to 49ers. 48 points to the Bills, which it's, I guess, passable.
It is the Bills.
29 to the Seahawks. Now that I look at it, there's actually not a ton of scoring. But
I was going to say, he had a really good year.
he had a great year. Was it good enough worth a 5-year deal for a team that can't seem to find anything good? You want to lock in a guy for 5 years?
He is the 6th head coach hired by the Jets since 2000 to have a defensive background and be a first-time head coach. Now, I love Aaron Glenn, and I genuinely hope that he has success against everyone but the Lions.
I'm a Jets fan.
That's the thing, is like, I hope that he leads them to the promised land and they win every game that they're not playing the Lions.
I mean, this is what I guess when you have your son running the team like Woody Johnson does. I don't know if you saw that rumor, but
no, I mean it's almost worse than Dallas, right? Where like he is running his own team. Oh, how the hell do you keep running into the same problem if you're the Jets? And you're, it's like
it feeds into the script argument, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Like grow up, dude. And maybe it was what I don't know. We're not necessarily perfect analysts, but if we're gonna be armchair GMs, you're gonna sit there and think, what the hell?
And
2+2 ain't gonna equal 25 anymore, pal. You got to figure something out.
It's the Lakers with LeBron, right? Where that's a Jets team that doesn't know what the hell to do with timelines. Do they trade away picks to try to win now because they've got this aging superstar who's one of the best to ever do it? The comparison being LeBron and Aaron Rodgers, which not the same. But what do you do? Because you put this huge investment into Devontae Adams, into Aaron Rodgers. You went and got all of Aaron Rodgers' buddies. You've been cycling through coaches to try to get somebody he likes. But then you also suck ass. Like, you're terrible at football in every aspect. Do you think what?
Do we think Aaron Rodgers is going to retire?
I don't know. And I, to be honest with you, for Aaron Glenn's, just being like a fan of Aaron Glenn and wanting him to succeed, I think it's better if Aaron Rodgers retires because 100%. Then the Jets can pick a direction, right? They can't be, we need to win now because we've got an ancient quarterback. Also, we're terrible, and try to somehow get that to equal 10, you know.
Or if they're trying to get that to equal the number one pick, which I don't think it will, unfortunately, because even when you start your season so bad that the playoffs are so out of sight, he's going to wake up and they're going to find the motivation to say, hey, we're going to win our next 4 or 5 games of the season. Then you're picking in the middle of the draft. So, I don't know. We're also talking things that we won't even be able to comprehend yet because we don't know what the draft classes are going to look like. There's so many uncertainties. And that is, unfortunately, every single coaching hire is a risk. Yeah. Every single one.
Shot in the dark.
It was a risk when Dan Campbell came in. After that first season he had, everyone was like, get this guy the hell out of here. He's all talk. Hiring Ben Johnson is a risk. Hiring Aaron Glenn is a risk. Everything is a risk that teams have to be willing to. You have to take at one point. So who knows? And I guess back to the disappointment, but I do wonder. We said that this was the year. And then you watched as our defense dropped like flies, and we still made it through. But there was always that question mark there: can this second string, third string defense still get you to the promised land? I am very excited to see a possible first string defense next year. Because you're not, you said we're losing some key guys in defense. I think there's the ability to bring in more. Outside of our OC and some of our coaches, offensive talent isn't going anywhere. And as much as I love Ben Johnson, he's not the one that made Jahmyr Gibbs fast. He's not the one that made Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams have incredible hands. He didn't develop Jared Goff as a quarterback. This was, in a huge sense, placed in his hands, and he was able to take his knowledge and put it on some of the best talent in the world, and it worked for him.
Yeah. No,
I think there is a much stronger likelihood that we find maybe not another Ben Johnson in terms of play style and things like that, but I do understand this is a job that any offensive-minded coach should want.
Yeah, of course. And that'll be
Defensively, I don't know.
interesting. What was
But
that?
defensively, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with an injury, still an injured Aiden Hutchinson. Hopefully he comes back strong, but that's something that can hurt you for the rest of your career. A lot of guys who went through ACLs, MCLs, forearms, whatever it may be. At the outset, this is a team that I think you should want to come to, watching how Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, Sheila Ford, how they all have handled it.
Yeah, you're building a culture, and hopefully, Alex, you're right. It is a place people want to come. I know Adam Schefter's early reporting said that this is something the Lions want to hire internally for, i.e., promote a running
If we have
backs
any
coach.
assistants left.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? That'll be stuff that we cover as it comes out. But it'll be interesting to see how we replace on the one side Ben Johnson, on the other side Aaron Glenn, and in the middle, hopefully not that many other assistants. And we do have to slide over to the long list of negatives for the rest of Detroit sports. Do you want the one positive I've got mixed in here, other than Michigan women's basketball has won 3 in a row now. They've lost 3 in a row and have now won 3 in a row. They've got 2 ranked games in a row. They're playing Minnesota tonight, and then on Saturday, Michigan State. And those are 2 ranked but beatable teams because you're now ranked. I think you're 20th if you're Michigan women's basketball. A couple winnable games that are big for them coming up, and obviously the growth of what is a younger team. But other than that, I think the only positives we have long term right now is the Pistons. Do you want to save that till the end to leave on a high note, or do you want to mix it in?
We do have another positive, believe it or not, and it comes in hockey. But you'll see.
All right.
We can do that now.
Let's
or we
go
can
right
do
there.
that later. We'll go right
I
there.
like it. Let's go right there.
Michigan and Michigan State hockey, both dominating
Hell
the
yeah.
college hockey scene this year. MSU more so. They were number 1, got bumped down to number 2 after. Now number 10 Michigan beat them in East Lansing. They split the series, but Michigan beat them the first night. We're obviously both more Michigan fans than MSU, but this state team has some dogs. Most notably Trey Augustine, Red Wings goalie prospect. Helped. I think he's now won 2 gold medals at the World Juniors with Team USA. The guy is an absolute dog. Michigan's got some great guys as well. I know Jacob Truscott's leading a great team over there. 2 big teams to look for down the stretch. And we've got Western Michigan is number 3 now. They're in the mix. Let me see. I know Michigan Tech is up there. They're not in the top 20, but they're getting close. Big year for college hockey inside the state of Michigan. So we do have a positive there. It's not as much of a popular positive, but college hockey, dude, is growing, especially with everything with the ECHL that's been happening, where players can now go in between and whatnot. But Frozen Four, kind of like women's college basketball, that's another thing that I think is definitely garnering more fans. And it's great to have 2 teams successful in hockey right now.
That is great. We ought to slide it in there, a little weekly report, just like we do with women's ball, and a little report as well on Michigan State basketball. I know, as Alex mentioned, we don't love to report on it as much as Michigan, but they are a damn good basketball team, and that fucking sucks, dude.
Well, does it?
That sucks for me. I don't want to have to play them.
It'll be nice to have both of these teams competitive again, because I think you can make the argument that 4 or 5, maybe even 10 years ago, when both football teams were kind of doing this, where it was so lopsided, consistently Michigan and Michigan State was a hell of a game in college basketball. That's fallen off a bit the past few years as both teams have fallen off. Not really the past few, maybe past 2, but I am so excited for that rivalry to heat up again. I think they play the first time coming up in February.
Yeah.
Obviously, whether you love Michigan State or hate Michigan State, you are a lunatic if you don't have respect for Tom Izzo. The guy is in the top of college basketball figures in my mind. And at the same time, Dusty May has been rolling. I mean, especially in comparison to last year, he took a ship that was sinking hard and was able to bail it out and bring in some great talent. You never want to see a buzzer beater loss. I guess we can kind of slide into it, but it's the famous Rothstein tweet. This is anarchy. It's not anarchy. It's college basketball. It is chaotic. You're going to have your ups and downs. I can't remember the last time we ever saw an undefeated team, and this is not a Michigan team that's just going to be a number one seed. There's still a lot more room to grow, but the fact that they're still making these strides, they're still ranked, they're very, very likely to make the tournament, is great to bring back. It's kind of like what we talked about with the Lions, where when you come back, you cannot shift. Beggars can't be choosers overnight. You cannot shift that quickly. It's going to take some time. It is a new coach. It's a new system. And considering that, they're doing pretty freaking well. Obviously, like I said, hate seeing a buzzer beater loss to Northwestern the other night, especially a game that was so back
Minnesota.
and forth. Oh, Minnesota, sorry. But still, another game that was so back and forth. But those games are going to happen.
And it shouldn't have been back and forth, to be honest. To lose in Minnesota in that way, it was another bite of the turnover bug where, as a team, I don't think the total ended up being all that high. It was at 13. But Danny Wolf is your best player. He's a kid that's going to be, in contention to be an All-American, right? He's like in Player of the Year in the Big Ten conversations, as he should be, which almost makes it worse that he turned the ball over 6 fucking times. And we've talked about it all year. The kid needs to value possessions more. He needs to be safer with the basketball because it feels like the majority of the turnovers are sort of between the ears turnovers where you're making stupid plays and you're compounding on teams' issues where you end up turning the basketball over 1, 2, 3 times in a row or 4 times in 5 or 6 possessions. So it wasn't always pretty for Danny, though he did overall have a really good statistical game taking out those turnovers. Got back in the win column, win over Northwestern. And Vlad Golden put his name into the ring as far as a Player of the Year type of guy. And he's now had 30-plus in multiple Big Ten games this season. Just been absolutely stellar. He's even stepping out and hitting threes now, which I didn't think was possible for him. He's the OG ancient lob rim protector center. And he hit 3 threes in this one, and each one sort of got me up out of my chair more than the last one, so that was nice. But this is a tough schedule coming up for Michigan. We talked about it with Michigan women's ball a few weeks ago, where they had this West Coast trip where they played top 5 USC and then number 1 UCLA in back-to-back games. That's an ugly schedule, but it's the way the Big Ten is. And you've got the same sort of thing. It's the way the Big Ten is on the men's side, too. Your next 8 games, you have 4 top 15 teams, including Purdue twice, who's number 11 right now.
Yeah.
You play all 3 of your rivals, if you want to throw Penn State in there, Michigan State, OSU, Penn State. And you go to Indiana, who's 11-1 at home, though they have been struggling a little bit as of late, as Indiana. This is not an easy schedule.
No.
It's the Big Ten. It's not an easy conference. You cannot take a night off. And I think that, much like these next 2 games tell you a lot about what Michigan women's basketball really is, with 2 teams that should be around your level but are very good, the record might not look as good through the next 8 games on the men's side, but I think this is a lot of the same stuff where you find out a lot about what your team really is now that you're sort of into you're into almost February. Most of these games are going to be in February. You're into the meat of the Big Ten schedule. Can you night in, night out get not a 30-piece, but get good play from Vlad Golden? Can you get Trey Donaldson and Danny Wolf not turning the ball over on the same night? It'll be interesting. Hopefully we do see that. But I know that you had some positivity on the ice a minute ago. Now we got to slide over to some negativity. As the Wings, we were obviously very high when they changed head coaches. It was 7 wins in a row, I believe. I don't think they got that 8th.
And I mean, it's been a. I'm not going to deny it. You had the Florida win 5-2, which was awesome. You followed up with a 3-game losing streak. You're now 1-4 I want to say you're like 1-4-1. Uh, yeah, 1-4-1 in the past 5.
Mm.
Um, Flyers' loss was tough last night. Just wasn't it, they weren't able to generate a ton. But the Flyers have been a bit of a kryptonite for this team the past few years. They took the first game 4-1. We were able to come back and win 6-4 later in December. They won the series the other night, but it was good to have some consistency while it lasted. This team is not playing playoff caliber hockey the way they need to. And it really sucks because this is a team full of talent. I mean, Patty Kane was playing lights out. Haven't heard a ton from him as of late. You've got also arguably one of the tougher remaining schedules in the entire league. So you at the Canadiens tomorrow, or hosting the Canadiens tomorrow, then host the Lightning, then the Kings, then you're in Edmonton at the Oilers, in Calgary, in Vancouver, so you're doing the Canadian tour there. Then you're at Seattle. It's not easy. Then you've got probably Krill back with the Wild. You'll have that break in February while the Four Nations is happening. You want to hope that no one gets hurt during that. But this is going to be the time. I know we've got the Stars again. We've got the Lightning, I think, another 3 times. This is a very dangerous Lightning team, has been for a while. So it's going to be chipping one in every once in a while, seeing if you can pull off some upsets, and really just trying to itch your way more than it was last year, where everything was building, and then you went on that 7 or 8 game pointless streak and completely screwed up your entire season. This is going to be a bit more of a punch you here, punch you there, see if we can not get knocked out. Which sucks. I was hoping it'd be different, but the goalie situation seems to just not be working whatsoever, and when the goalie situation is working a little bit, the pucks aren't going in the net.
I was going to say, this is 3 games in a row now where you've scored 1, 1, and 1 goal each in the last 3. And it felt like that was a big part of the revival in that 7-game win streak, was the play from the veterans and how nice the offense was looking, and then suddenly it drops off. Is there anything to that, or just a lack of consistency?
I think it's a lack of consistency. It doesn't look like too much has changed from a play style standpoint. It sounds like they're still trying to be aggressive. Hockey's a game of bounces, though. It's going to be a win-win. You win some, lose others. I mean, this team should never be losing to a San Jose Sharks team. They should never be giving up 4 or 5 goals. It's been tough where some days it's on, some days it's off. So.
Well, we will slide over to the Pistons, who, like I said, have some positives to end the show, thankfully, because it feels like finally Cade Cunningham is getting some respect now, where, honestly, we've been throwing his name into the void, it feels like, for months, where, man, Cade's so good. He's taking a step forward. He's doing this and that, and nobody's listening and nobody's caring, and that's fine. And obviously it wasn't us, but his stellar play has felt like it's continued just to a point where it's undeniable now, where you start to see him on ESPN more. You start to see House of Highlights posting it and him getting all this attention. And it is really cool to see what is probably going to be an all-star playing for the Pistons. First all-star since, I'm going to give you a guess here. I think your mic is off.
Yeah, that would help a lot. My instant reaction is Blake.
Yeah, you're right. 2019 Blake Griffin. And
it seems like it's been longer than that. My next guess would have been like Drummond or something.
It was Drummond before that. But you got to think about...
Wow, I'm rolling with the Pistons.
That's 6 years ago. That's 6 years ago was our last All-Star. Maybe we're just getting old.
If you could get a win tonight in Atlanta, I think we'd move up to the 6th seed, wouldn't we?
Yeah, you are exactly right. We would, look at you, on top of it. We would slide right into that 6th seed. And it's really, really cool because we're yelling into the void about Cade Cunningham, and finally we get some yelling back, right, that he is that good. And we're yelling into the void about, hey, this is a Pistons team that is probably going to overperform expectations this season. And here comes the yelling back, way more than even we could have expected. This is a team that's a half game out of the 6th spot. Like Alex mentioned, you get a win tonight. Obviously, that's short term. That's if the season ended right now today, and you've still got, half of it to go. So let's not pretend that that truly means anything. But you win tonight, and then the season ends at midnight. You're in the 6th spot. You're out of the play-in entirely. This is a team who preseason we were high on and saying that we're high on them because look, this, and this can happen, and they can be a play-in team. Play-in being the ceiling. Now you're at a point where you're praying that you can leave the play-in at your floor, which is pretty darn incredible. And we've said it a couple of times. This isn't just Cade Cunningham. There's a ton of pieces and a ton of front office stuff that happened in the offseason before the year started that has them where they are right now. But you did lose a couple before a win in Houston, which was really big. You lost to the Pacers, which was more or less expected. You lost to the Pacers and then the Suns, who are two teams that are pretty much on your level. I thought the Phoenix win was all right, given how Cade started the game and then got hot into the second half. The Pacers win was a little bit ugly, or the loss, pardon me, was a little uglier to me. But then you go into Houston, and the Rockets are the 2nd seed in the West right now. And you beat, which, super surprising because, they should have been praying for 500 this year, and they're overperforming expectations. Here come the Pistons into town and beat them by double digits. Get one of those third quarters from Cade Cunningham, man, where in the third quarter, Cade scored or assisted on as many points as the entire Rockets roster. That's pretty freaking cool. That is unheard of. That is literally, as long as we're talking about him, Blake Griffin stuff. That's stuff Blake used to do where he just put the team on his back and went backing dudes down possession after possession. And
who was it that said in the they were interviewing Cade? I think it was
Malik
Ivy.
Beasley?
It might have been Beasley where he was like, put this man in the fucking All-Star game.
Go fucking vote.
Yeah, go fucking vote. He's now, it's finally, like you said, people have been shouting into the void about him all year. You're finally now seeing how talented this dude is, and it's because he's got guys around him.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a LeBron who can transform an entire organization. You need to have, but basketball is it's not a one-on-one game all the time. It's a 5-on-5 game. You can't do it all by yourself. And so it's nice that there's talent around him.
What will long-term listeners, who I don't even know if we have any, from Pure Michigan Sports last year, what do they remember is us getting on here every week and going, damn it, dude, there's no spacing around Cade Cunningham. They're not just not putting dudes around him, but they're like actively putting him in the worst situation you can. And it felt like this offseason, and you remember we had Bryce Simon on here talking about,
shout out, Bryce.
Was it an A-plus home run offseason? No, but it felt like you made all of the right moves that we've been waiting on. And you're exactly right, Alex. You've got dudes around him that can space the floor, that can shoot the cover off of the basketball, and they are making him better. He is making them better, and that's really cool to see. So hopefully we're on here in a few weeks. I don't know exactly when it comes out, but All-Star voting closed a few days ago, I think midnight on the 20th. Maybe it was midnight last night. But All-Star voting closed. I don't know exactly when they'll announce it, but hopefully we're talking next week or the week after about a Cade Cunningham All-Star selection, and that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, absolutely. First time in a while, and it's at least one aspect that's looking up. Hopefully the Wings can get back on track, and we'll have more Tigers news, obviously, as it comes up. And obviously we're also following our college teams here. I think, does that kind of do it? I don't know if I can crash out anymore. I think I crashed out enough.
I think, yeah. I'm all crashed out. But
I'm also, as I was looking at it, and I am foregoing my pick this week. I don't think I can do it in good conscience right now. I think I might need some time off with the picking, and probably sitting there asking why. Anytime I look at any line right now, I don't care if it's football, it's hockey, it's underwater basket weaving. I am thinking of the fact that Vegas won so much freaking money with the Lions losing.
All right,
So I'm boycotting for. We'll see when I get back on the train. I don't know if you have a pick, but that is my official stance as of this moment.
No, let's do it a little bit different. Let's end the show on, we're Lions fans. We're used to having a team picked way in advance going into the playoffs because we know the Lions aren't going to do anything. We've got a team set aside like, oh, we're going to cheer for the Saints this year because I really want to go see Drew Brees get to the Super Bowl.
Do you have one?
Yeah, that's the thing is, I didn't have one start of the playoffs because it was the fucking Lions, and we're not used to actually having our own team to cheer for. Who is your team now? Who do you
Bills.
want that's left to win?
Bills. Not even close.
All right,
Not even
I
close.
got you.
I
We're lined up
think
on this one.
I would love to see one. I'd love to see the Chiefs get annihilated in that conference championship game. I'm going to talk about MVP caliber seasons. Josh Allen has proved time and time again that he is the guy that Buffalo needs. Crazy that he was at Wyoming, of all places. That's just nuts
0
to me.
star, 0 offer guy, man.
Yeah, which is insane. But pulling for them, I think it'd be nice to. I mean, you have that with Washington again, but it'd be nice to say, hey, we lost to a team that won the Super Bowl. So there's a little bit.
Fair enough. Well, that'll do it from Alex Deimel and Christian Peck-Dimit. I think this was episode 37. Doesn't matter. We'll find out after. Drop that follow if you haven't already. If you like content like this, we'll get you plenty more of it. It's been Pure Michigan Sports.